You live here?
Yes.
Well, maybe you know what a zombie is.
When a person dies and is buried, it seems there's certain voodoo priests who have the power to bring him back to life.
Horrible.
It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring.
You mean like Democrats?
Yes. Even Bob Hope knew way back when. You mean like Democrats? Glassy-eyed zombies, knowing not what they do? You think they were looting and burning police cars back then, too? Looters of the world unite. It's a little updated Marxist thing. Well, happy Wednesday to you and welcome back. You know, I was poking around. I'm not even sure what prompted this yesterday, but it started yesterday. I started looking around at these crazy statistics. I think it started with a tweet that someone sent me, and it was quite remarkable, really, and has to do with the numbers of LGBTQ people, LGBT plus Q, which can be queer, it can be questioning, maybe it can be query, which is like a question, but a lot more fun. Pretty remarkable stuff. Oh yeah, it was this crazy item that popped yesterday that 58% of women, right, and 34% of men. So more than half of women and more than a third of men between the ages of 18 and 34. 18 and 34. The Democrats they're winning this whole gender freakazoid thing. 58% of women and 34% of men between the ages of 18 and 34 think that if someone says there are only two genders, if you say there are only two genders, that's a red flag in a partner. So if you might become involved with someone personally or even interpersonally, if that person says there are only two genders, that is a red flag to people who are 18 to 34 years old because they've been so thoroughly brainwashed and propagandized, you know. The public at large has never been propagandized to believe, you know, made up anti-scientific lunacy like this. But this is the world that we live in today. And the explanation for that is Democrats, you see, because Democrats. So if you say there are only two genders, that freaks out people between the ages of 18 and 34 because the Democrats, they have sunk their teeth into these people. And I saw that, so I did a quick search. I said, can that actually be true? And what came up was a whole bunch of Gallup polling numbers. And it's quite remarkable what the Democrats have been able to do in just a few years. The Gallup polling organization in 2021, it's February 24th of 2021. So Joe Biden had just become president, right? Joe Biden had just been sworn in January of 2021. And the headline from Gallup was, LGBT identification rises to 5.6% in latest U.S. estimate. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look a little more deeply. And I looked in the Gallup polling people. They show that in 2012, they said that the number was 3.5% identified as LGBT, right? So 2012. And then in 2020, 5.6% of people. Now, I scratched the surface a little more because I'm a curious type, and it turns out the Gallup polling people will tell you that in 1946, when Joe Biden was middle-aged, in 1946, 0.8% of Americans said they were LGBTQ, somewhere on the LGBTQ spectrum, on the LGBTQ thing, 0.8%. And then after a couple of decades, it actually went up to 1.4%. But in 2012, it was 3.5% in saying that they're LGBT. And then in 2020, 5.6%. How can that be? 5.6, the numbers are going up and up. 5.6%. Well, I kept looking because, it's the kind of thing that I do. And then in 2023, February 22nd of 2023, the same people, Gallup polling organization, U.S. LGBT identification steady at 7.2%. I'm like, wait a minute. So between 2012 and 2023, the number of people that identify as LGBT more than doubled in that period of time. And that's kind of remarkable. Between 2012 and 2023, the number goes from 3.5% to 7.2%. And it's because Democrats are teaching to the test. They're teaching just remarkable stuff. Now, that's pretty wacky, but it gets wackier. Hang on just a second, because I dug a little deeper into the Gallup polling numbers. Sexual orientation or gender identity by generation in 2022. Now, if you're Gen Z, 19.7% of Gen Z identify as LGBT. So in Joe Biden's generation, 0.8%. And now Gen Z, they say, Gallup polling, this is not, I think, a politically driven organization, but they ask the questions, they get the answers. And now Gen Z, they say 19.7%. That's basically 1 in 5. 1 in 5. It's, if you round it to 20%, 19.7%. So Joe Biden is a kid, 0.8%. Then they jack it up. Can you say jack it up in this context? 1.4%. And then they're very proud in 2012 to get it to 3.5%. Happy to announce in 2022 it's 7.2%. See, gay people have a lot more people to choose from now. A lot more people. 0.8%. It's going to be hard to find a date. But now you got 7.2% of the overall population. But for Gen Z, 19.7%. How many identify as heterosexual? Well, they don't ask that question. That's another question for another poll. Can you say poll in this context? Because that is jack it up. That's pretty amazing stuff, isn't it? Yes, it is. But I noticed that because of the first one, that Gen Z people say it's a red flag if anyone says there are two genders. That's a red flag, all right? And pretty amazing stuff. 18 to 34, that's a red flag if you say there are two genders. And 19.7% say that they are on the LGBT spectrum. Because the Democrats, they're coming for the kids. They're coming for the kids. And that is a little bit of a double entendre, but that's amazing stuff that they've got going on here. Yes, sir. Fortunately, a lot of them are lesbians. So that's, I kid, but everybody loves lesbians. All right, let's take another phone call, Michael. Let's go to, and we've got President Trump and all kinds of Democrat mayhem. But let's go to the telephones. I see what looks like a wonderful caller. Let's go to Michael, calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Miguel, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. You're the best. I've never heard anybody who can make you think and laugh at the same time the way you do. So you're the best there is. That said, my wife is an African-American physician. I'm an American white Jewish man who's in medicine, both raised as lefties, both huge Trump supporters. And we're seeing a lot of that happening in our communities. That said, if there were a free and a fair election, I wouldn't have any worries at all. My worry is this. On day one, when Biden opened the border, all I could think of was votes. It's for millions of votes. And that's happening. I'm hearing that they're registering so many of these people to vote. The second problem is there are states, I don't know if it's already come into law, that are going to toss their electoral college votes to the popular vote, which is mob rule, as you know.
Yep.
which would mean that states that maybe the Electoral College would have gone to President Trump could go to Kamala Harris if the popular vote goes in the Democrat direction. My fear, how do you overcome this? I'm at a loss here. I mean, my wife and I consider ourselves fairly intelligent. We don't know what to do. We see a surge in black votes. We see a surge in Jewish votes in the right direction towards President Trump. But it'll all be for naught if Biden's plan, or whoever's handlers were, Obama, plan to open the borders and just bring in millions of votes goes into effect. What do you do?
What do you do is a very important question, and it's a question that ought to be facing the nation. And if we had a legitimate news media instead of a gang of Democrat Party bootlicks, which is overwhelmingly what we have. I mean, I grew up in the news media universe. I worked in the news media universe. I'm still a Washington, D.C. person, and I know these people. I still hang out with some of them. I want to pause on your story for a moment, Michael, because you told it very well, and it's an interesting story. You're Jewish, you're white, you were raised in a liberal Democrat household. Your wife, your beloved bride, is and you're in the medical, you're either a doctor or something approximating that. And your wife is African-American Catholic, not Jewish, African-American Catholic, both raised in Democrat Party households. And you're both all in with President Trump, which I love. I mean, it sounds like a harmonious household. It sounds like a wonderful story. In fact, you should probably be a reality TV show and, not just a caller to my radio show. It sounds like there should be cameras in your house every day. And your wife is a doctor, and that is, and it's a great story. But you are concerned as all get out. You're concerned as hell that there is something amiss here. There's something askew here, that the open borders being a part of it, that the Democrats declaring, they're hostile to our system of government. They're hostile to the United States of America. They're hostile to capitalism. They're hostile to all things good and Western because they are the left. They're not liberals. They're not Democrats in the traditional American sense, Michael. You know it. I know it. The American people know it, as Bob Dole used to say. And you are an amazing story, and you're concerned that there are Democrats who are anti-electoral college, and a whole lot of senior Democrats are anti-electoral college, would like to throw out the electoral college altogether. And they're saying, oh, no, we're not going to go with the electoral college. We're not going to do, American tradition be damned. We're going to try to steal the election on a state level. And you believe that President Trump would win easily in a free and fair election, but you're not convinced that we're going to have a free and fair election.
Absolutely correct. And I don't think the last one was. And this one is definitely not going to be. The question is, what can we do? I mean, even as I and my wife, we're alarmed as individual citizens. What can we do to call a halt to all of the it's not shenanigans, it's evil that they're pulling with the American election, the electoral system.
Yeah.
By the way, have you ever seen the video American Forms of Government?
I don't believe that I have.
It's a great video. I used to be a professor in a graduate school, and I used to make students just watch it. It's about 10 minutes. It's on YouTube, and it's crystal clear. It starts with when the Constitutional Convention was over. A woman asked Benjamin Franklin, "What have you given us, sir?"
Right.
And he said, "A republic if you can keep it, ma'am."
That's right.
And we've already lost it. But the question they ask is, how many times does the word democracy appear in the U.S. Constitution? The answer is 0. How many times does it appear in the Declaration of Independence? 0.
Right.
They said the Founding Fathers did everything in their power to keep us away from a democracy, which is mob rule.
That's right.
51% of the people say something, the other 49% be damned.
That's right.
And that's what the Democrats are pushing for.
It is. Yeah, now our system is the most ingenious, the most brilliant system ever devised by man in the history of humankind. And only an authoritarian goon And an ignorant authoritarian goon would want to do away with it and replace it with something that would be obviously and on its face inferior to what we were gifted by some of the greatest geniuses in the history of the world, our founders, who are held in contempt, of course, by the authoritarian mob that you describe, Michael. And what do we do about it? We show up on Election Day. We vote from the top of the ballot to the bottom. We volunteer to be poll watchers. We work in local political organizations, conservative and Republican political organizations, to try to keep us on track. And we blow the whistle when we see, and we speak to people, we reason with people, and we are in danger of all of this being swept away by today's crop of Democrats.
I live in the state of Minnesocialism.
Mm-hmm.
Where Tampon Tim, that is absolutely perfect, is the governor. I am convinced that there was massive cheating in Minnesota in the last presidential election, but nobody cared to even look because Minnesota is often a blue state. And, it's the only state, when who was it, Reagan won 49, he didn't get this one.
That's right.
But I'm sure there was a video on, again, I'm not a huge YouTube fan, there was a video on YouTube in one of the prior elections where two guys undercover, or a guy undercover with a camera, went down to Hennepin County, the biggest county in Minnesota, and asked for a ballot. He said, "Can I get a ballot? I'm not going to be able to." And he said, "Sure." And he pulled out his driver's license. This is on a video. And the woman freaked out. She said, No. I don't want to see any ID.
Right.
He said, "Okay."
Yeah, they're they're not liberals. They're the left. Michael, I could talk to you all day, of course. But we gotta pay our bills here. I thank you very much for calling in, and God bless you and your wife, and God save us all. And what do? We pay attention, we tell the truth, we speak up, we speak out loud, we get involved on a local level, we tell the truth, and we fight for truth, justice, and the American way. All right, I've a wonderful call from Michael in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Great stuff. Thinking people out there concerned about where we are and where we're going. Intelligent people. Knowledgeable people, wise people, thoughtful people. And that is what defines our country. The left is corrupting everything from gender and sexual orientation to the history of our country and beyond. Now, I've got an update for you. President Trump was at Arlington Cemetery to commemorate the third anniversary of the terrorist attack at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan, during the Democrats' disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. President Trump was at Arlington, and now there's a big hoo-ha going on. And Arlington National Cemetery just put out a statement about it. I've got that coming up. All right, now the Democrats, and by that I mean the news media, they're making a big deal in National Panhandler Radio, taxpayer-funded propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, with the most elaborate propaganda radio network in the history of humankind, quite literally. Every big city and small hamlet in America. I don't even know how many NPR stations we have in Washington, but we've got WHUR and WAMU and WETA, and we've got a lot of different NPR stations and a lot of different PBS stations, all suckling on the taxpayer teat, and they're all an extension of the Democrat Party. Their propaganda reach has no limits. But NPR, National Panhandler Radio, has the headline 16 hours ago. Trump campaign staff had altercation with official at Arlington National Cemetery. See, President Trump actually went to Arlington National Cemetery, unlike Joe Biden and unlike Kamala Harris, unlike Tim Walz. President Trump went to Arlington National Cemetery, where there was a scheduled wreath-laying ceremony, as they are described, to commemorate the third anniversary of the terrorist attack at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan, where the evacuation should have been taking place, of course, at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, giant, easily defended air base that we had built at great expense. And it was very secure, but the idiots running the Biden administration, the Biden Pentagon, they said, let's do everything wrong. So they did, and it led to 13 Americans being blown up and killed. A number more were injured in that radical Islamic jihadi terrorist suicide attack at the airport there. Now, so President Trump went to Arlington National Cemetery, unlike Kamala Harris, and he was there participating in the wreath-laying ceremony. Apparently, after the wreath-laying ceremony, President Trump went down to what is known as Section 60, Section 60 in Arlington National Cemetery. I can walk you right to it, and that is the section, the area of Arlington Cemetery, where you will find the majority, certainly, of the Americans killed in combat post-September 11th, 2001, in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq primarily, but not exclusively. And that's Section 60. Anybody that knows Arlington Cemetery knows Section 60. Now, let's go to the NPR propaganda here. Trump campaign staff had altercation with official at Arlington National Cemetery. And this, again, might as well be a Democrat Party press release. 2 members of Donald Trump's campaign staff had a verbal and physical altercation on Monday, the day before yesterday, with an official at Arlington National Cemetery, where the former president participated in a wreath-laying ceremony. NPR has learned. They've learned. They have one anonymous source on this. But I've got an update on all this because Arlington has put out a statement now. A source, one source, anonymous, of course, with knowledge of the incident, and you can just take their word for it, said the cemetery official tried to prevent Trump staffers from filming. I doubt they had film cameras, probably had phones, from filming and photographing in a section where recent U.S. casualties are buried. The source said Arlington officials had made clear that only cemetery staff members would be authorized to take photographs or film in the area known as Section 60. When the cemetery official tried to prevent Trump campaign staff, it's a presidential campaign, should they phone ahead and ask for official sanction to make a video? Does that include with your phone? Because, here's a guy who's former president of the United States who's running again for the presidency of the United States and one of the 2 major parties in the United States. When the cemetery official tried to prevent Trump campaign staff from entering Section 60, why would he try to prevent them from entering Section 60? Anybody can walk in. There's no fence around it or anything. It's an area in the Arlington National Cemetery. Campaign staff verbally abused and pushed the official aside, according to the source. Again, a single anonymous NPR source. And if you can't trust them, treat them like the burning bush of truth. Trump participated in an event to mark the 3rd anniversary of a deadly attack on U.S. troops in Afghanistan as U.S. forces withdrew from the country under Joe Biden's disastrous withdrawal plan. 13 U.S. service members were killed in the attack. The Trump campaign has blamed President Biden and Vice President Harris. It was their plan, wasn't it? Now the Democratic presidential nominee for the chaotic withdrawal. But NPR hasn't, quote, blamed them for the chaotic withdrawal because they're on Team Biden. And now they're on Team Harris because they're on Team Democrat. That's who they are. That's the thing. Now, this is remarkable stuff, but I now have an update for you on this NPR piece. And there are lots and lots of headlines. The Hill, Trump team pushes back on reported confrontation at Arlington Cemetery. And it turns out they're saying that there was a person experiencing mental health issues that interfered with them walking into Section 60 and then, of course, making video, because how dare you make video at Arlington National Cemetery when you're a former president of the United States? And who's the guy that intervened? I don't know. Let's get another anonymous source and see if we can find out about all that, because that's pretty wacky stuff. Now, the Trump team pushes back on reported confrontation at Arlington National Cemetery, and The Hill by Brett Samuels. The Trump campaign is blaming an Arlington National Cemetery official for a reported confrontation during the former president's visit there Monday to mark the anniversary of the Kabul airport attack that killed 13 U.S. service members amid the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The incident, first reported by NPR, stemmed from the presence of a photographer with former President Trump's camp and broader concerns about election-related activities in a military cemetery. He's a former president, and he's running for president again. He's the nominee of the Republican Party. Arlington National Cemetery confirmed an incident took place, and a report was filed, but provided no other details. Federal law prohibits political campaign or election-related activities within Army national military cemeteries to include photographers, content creators, or any other person attending for purposes or in direct support of a partisan political candidate's campaign, the cemetery said in a statement. Arlington National Cemetery reinforced and widely shared this law and its prohibitions with all participants. We can confirm there was an incident and a report was filed. So that is the statement that Arlington National Cemetery initially put out. And so wait a minute. So he should have made a phone call to get a cemetery official to say, oh, okay, you can do that because you're a former president, you're running for president. But instead, there was somebody there who decided to take it upon himself or herself. I'm going to assume it's a himself at this point. But the NBC fake news is reporting that Arlington National Cemetery on Tuesday confirmed an incident took place. And when President Trump visited on Monday, we can confirm there was an incident and federal law prohibits and all that stuff. Now, the news media loves this because it goes to everything that they love to smear President Trump and Republicans, in particular as being anti-military, right? It's the old suckers and losers thing. In fact, the NBC News piece on this is it goes on to attack him. And Trump generated controversy this month when he said that the Presidential Medal of Freedom, a civilian award, was, quote, better, end quote, than the top military award. Whenever they put one word in quotation marks, you should always consider that to be suspect. The Medal of Honor. Trump has previously faced scrutiny over a 2020 report in The Atlantic, if you can't believe the left-wing rag, The Atlantic, who can you believe, which former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly later confirmed that he made disparaging remarks about fallen soldiers, calling them suckers and losers. See, this is part of that narrative. And if there was, and Arlington says there was something of an incident, a minor incident of some kind, where an employee said, oh, you can't, former president of the United States. They're not there doing a Ford pickup commercial. It's the president of the United States, former president of the United States. And honestly, the Democrat Party, the Trump communications director, Stephen Chung, denied some of the details. The report in NPR, the NPR report, said the campaign was willing to release footage, since they have video, to support President Trump and the Trump campaign's position. Sounds like they're going to have to release the video. But the Trump campaign and Stephen Chung said, there was no physical altercation as described, and we're prepared to release footage if such defamatory claims are made. The fact is, a private photographer was permitted on the premises, and for whatever reason, an unnamed individual, clearly suffering from a mental health episode, decided to physically block members of President Trump's team during a very solemn ceremony. Now, I've got to say, Stephen Chung, it's time to release the video. You've got to release the video. You have the video, release the video. And now they're saying that someone clearly suffering from a mental health episode Maybe the guy's a little hysterical, a little apoplectic. They got a Biden-Harris supporter there at Arlington National Cemetery, and he got a little spun up. I'm guessing that's pretty much what happened. What do you think? Yes, sir. All right, let's move on from that. You know, we've got another gigantic story today, too, which I opened the show with some time ago. Trump charged in superseding indictment in election interference case following SCOTUS ruling, Supreme Court of the United States ruling. And Trump rages about deranged Jack Smith. Deranged Jack Smith filing new January 6th indictment, a new January 6th indictment, merely an attempt to interfere with the election. And President Trump, on his own social media platform, did put out a tweet. You know, Jack Smith, who was appointed by Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, who was still bitter about not being on the Supreme Court. Merrick Garland, appointed by Joe Biden as Chief Law Enforcement Officer, created this special counsel to investigate Trump. The Supreme Court slapped him down, and now he has rephrased and rewritten his indictment, a superseding indictment against President Trump. And this is a new phase in the third worlding of America. And with that, let's go to a telephone call, Michael. Let's go to Bob calling from Ashburn, Virginia. Robert, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Morning, Chris. I make it short. I'm a retired LEO investigator type.
Law enforcement officer.
And I've been trained by the FBI National Academy, et cetera, so those are my credentials.
Okay.
I am an attorney. However, I've worked with a lot of attorneys in 30-some years. Number one, you need the 6 elements to have a crime. Who, what, why, when, where, and how. None of that stuff is present in the indictment that I see that Jack Smith has presented. The second thing is I want to know what standing Judge Cannon gave to Jack Smith, because if he's prosecuting Trump as a special counsel, he's way off base. He can't do it. The other thing is those elements have to be in his indictments, and so far the indictments, the ones that I see in the public forum, are absolutely unenforceable as far as the law goes. I mean, any good investigator will tell you those basic elements have to be in a case in order to make it, and none of that stuff is present.
Well, those are details. Democrats don't bother themselves with details like that, Bob. They, don't you know who they are? They can do what they want. They have the power, and the power is there to be abused.
Well, it's not to be abused. I'm a veteran also. I'm a Vietnam veteran as well. And I'm telling you right now, I've seen plenty of abuse around in different countries all over the world. It's just not, this is the way this is going right now. This is a third world country. Second thing I wanted to bring up is Kamala Harris. Who actually appointed her to the position of a running candidate? Was there an election?
They don't need that. The party bosses, Barack Obama, and the party bosses selected. They don't have to elect. They just select. And you use the turn of phrase third world country. We are very rapidly turning into a third world country because I've been talking about this for years, Bob. The left is here, and every country the left takes over becomes a third world hellhole.
Well, I'll give you another example. So because I was born overseas in Europe, I was born in Trieste. My dad was a military officer. He was the chief of CIC right after World War II. I was born in 1947, so you know how old I am. Long in tooth.
Uh-huh.
Okay? But my mother was Italian. Now, my father told me that in order to cement my citizenship, I had to be in the United States continuously for a period of 7 years.
Uh-huh.
That's when I went. When he was appointed a U.S. consul, I had to stay in the stateside, and so I went to boarding school until I completed my 7-year status.
Uh-huh.
But in order for somebody like Kamala Harris to run for president of the United States, both of her parents must be naturalized and or American citizens born in the United States, according to law.
Well, I know that's been disputed, though, right?
It's disputed, but I'm telling you right now, if we're going to go into the bushes here looking for stuff, why not bring it up? And somebody can check it out. There's plenty of smart attorneys I know of.
Yeah.
I mean, I was taught legal class by some very, very sharp guys at the FBI National Academy. They don't play around, you know?
Yeah. Well, they've proven that, I think, over and over again. And that's another discussion for another day, because that one all by itself could go on for hours. Bob, fun stuff. God bless you. Saluting you. Born to his Army officer father in Europe and U.S. military, law enforcement, FBI Academy. He's got questions. If only we had a legitimate news media that raised these questions. I also have the mailbag coming up in the next hour. Today is Wednesday, mailbag day. Have that coming up. Lickety split. Let's grab a phone call, Michael. Let's grab real quickly William in Silver Spring, Maryland. William, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, regarding this incident allegedly at Arlington yesterday, what do you want to bet that this was some radical lesbian or transgender employee of the Park Service who had a bone to pick with the Trumps and wants to make an issue and anonymously called NPR? I would bet my next paycheck on that. But the important thing, Chris, is if this were the other way around, they would be blessing any photo op possible for the Democrats who typically wouldn't go to an Arlington Cemetery.
All true. You've cracked the code. You've got them figured out, William. It's absolutely right. And where was NPR in this, or did the employee contact NPR? And when the employee decided to contact news media, selected NPR to make the phone call, to drop the dime.
Chris, I say just one thing. When are the American people going to wake up and see what's going on?
Well, that is the question of the ages, William. There's no doubt about it. You know, wake up, wake up, wake up, Spike Lee once said in one of his movies. And it is about time that people started opening their eyes and waking up. Mailbag coming up.